In Revelation chapter 13, John continues and he says, if someone, any individual, has an ear, he must hear. Now, of course, people normally have ears and they hear things. In this context, of course, John is saying people, someone, every individual must pay attention, listen attentively, becoming informed. Listen to what? Which is, if someone causes holy people or the sanctified people living on earth at that time to go or to be led into captivity, to make them captive, prisoners of war, people held captive by the enemy, and of course the enemy is the devil, Satan, as having taken them by the spear during a battle. So if someone, if any individual, causes holy people on earth at this time that we're referring to go or to be led into captivity, he, that same someone, goes into captivity. So he is the one who will actually receive the implementation of judgment for his actions, which will be captivity. And if somebody causes holy people, again the sanctified people living on earth at this time, to be killed in or by the sword, those who will use a knife for slaughter to kill the holy people at this time, he causes himself to be killed in or by the sword. That person will receive the implementation of judgment for his actions. Here is, or in this category, is the patient endurance, the bearing up or holding upwards under any obstacle, and the belief, the information that God makes known to his people, to have confidence in, with assured certainty, with surety of course, the holy people. They rely on the promise that God has given them to believe, and they patiently await the implementation of final judgment, its complete fulfillment. Continuing in verse 11 of chapter 13, John writes, and I, John, saw, I perceived, or knew with my mind, he was receiving revelation, another wild animal, a second savage beast of prey, which is not tamed by mankind. And that word another tells us that it is of the same kind or sort as the first wild animal referred to in verse 1 of chapter 13. So this other wild animal ascends or comes up out from the earth. Now this one comes out from the land, the ground where mankind is living. It is a product of those of mankind working for or with the devil, Satan, at this future time. And it used to have, now again this is John speaking by revelation as though he had seen it and looking back at the event. And it used to have, it was continuing to hold in its possession the combination of all the power, attitudes, etc. of its individual parts. It used to have what? 2 horns. So each one of these 2 horns connotes radiance of strength, power to overcome, and courage in the face of attack. The second wild animal that came up from the earth has 2 horns, similar to the little lamb or the small lamb. So initially, this wild animal displays itself as being no threat to the people, but providing them with agreeable witness, as though proving what it claims to be the truth. And it used to utter forth or speak in comparison to a dragon. Its speech was subtle and deceiving, using the devil or Satan's evil spirit power in soothsaying. The results of its actions and effects of what it produces are devastating to people. And the second wild animal performs all of the authority of the first wild animal in the sight and presence of the first wild animal. And it makes or causes to produce, it brings about to or for the earth and the people inhabiting the earth, for the purpose and result that they will worship the wild animal, for people to pay homage to the wild animal, emphatically and specifically the first wild animal, whose stroke of its head was attended to. We looked at that in verse 3. So this second wild animal is the same one also known as the lying or false prophet, referred to in Revelation chapter 16, verse 13, and again in chapter 19, verse 20, and in 20, verse 10. It, the second wild animal, promotes itself as a religious leader. Let's continue in verse 13. And the second wild animal does great signs. It performs a large amount of signs in magnitude, importance, designated standards or signals showing authenticity. Why? For the purpose and result that in addition it would make or produce fire to descend out from heaven, or as though coming out from the sky above, into the earth in the sight and presence of mankind. So the men or the human beings watching the second wild animals would see that fire would come out as though from heaven, from the sky above, onto the earth. And it causes the people inhabiting the earth to wander, to err, not to stay put on the truth of God and His Word, but to cause them to err, to stray away from where they should be. Why? On account of the signs which were given to it to perform in the sight and presence of the first wild animal, saying to or for the people inhabiting the earth to make an image. So this second wild animal is telling the people to make an image, an icon, a representation to or in honor of the wild animal who has the stroke of the sword and became alive. And it was given to the second wild animal to give spirit. That's referring to a devil spirit, a demon, an evil spirit, to the image of the first wild animal, for the purpose and result that in addition the image, the icon of the wild animal would utter forth, it would speak and would perform an action, for the purpose and result that many people, as if it should happen at any time, who would not worship the image of the wild animal would be killed. So its purpose would be that those people who would not log in, as it were, to participate in worshipping the image would be killed by the devil's power. However, as we read the rest of this writing, we learn that not everyone who rejected the wild animal and its image was killed.